Hey guys, welcome to the Coop and Hatch podcast. I'm Matson,
I'm Carrie.
and we're a father-son team. He raised me pretty much in the car world. It's been our thing since obviously since I was born. But we based our lives around our family, our friends, and the automotive world. And we want to be able to share our relationship as
Father and son.
yeah, but it's still best friends and stuff like that. And so we know it's a really unique relationship, and this is our way of sharing it with you guys. So I hope you appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions, like how you guys want us to talk about things and stuff, we're more than happy to take suggestions. We want to have this feedback with you guys, just because we want to feel like you're part of the relationship too. So. If you ever have just even thoughts, we're happy to go over them. But we're gonna talk about a little bit what got him first into cars, and just the experience going from the '60s,
Yeah,
'70s,
60s, 70s, and 80s.
yeah, and then all the way to now. We're gonna do with me how I think that impacted, um, how I grew up, because there's a lot of people that get into the car world now that they just kind of start on their own. It's especially right now, it's a really big fad, which I'm fine with it. But I mean, for my dad, I guess it's been more like a lifestyle for you, right?
Yeah, my whole life has been wrapped around cars. So, starting back in some of my fondest memories, start back in 1971. I was 8. We had just purchased a '69 Rambler station wagon. We lived on the outskirts of San Diego, so it was about 20 miles or so to San Diego. We didn't really have any big stores, so we would go make a journey into San Diego to go to the Sears store or go to McDonald's. McDonald's was a 15 mile, 20 minute drive. And on the way, we'd be going through Mission Valley there in San Diego, and the Ford Mercury dealer up in the corner of their showroom had a rotisserie, and I'll never forget when they parked the Pantera up on there.
I don't think I have a picture of the Pantera.
Bright yellow Pantera, and just sitting there spinning as a little kid, my face plastered on that back window of the Rambler. I was the youngest, so I always got to sit in the back rear facing seat, face backwards, so I could see what was coming at us.
Yeah, so he'd be sitting right about right back there. So a little bit on the Pantera, just in case you don't know what it is. It is an American powered early supercar. I mean, I don't know. I can't put it up there with a Lamborghini and stuff like that. But if you want to know more about the Pantera, and the Mangusta and the De Tomaso company, Don't Media is a great resource for that, and they go into it. So and we are big fans of them, so we're totally fine just backing them. We don't care. They're cool guys. So so that's the suggestion on the Pantera.
Yeah, it was an amazing car, especially for a little kid, staring out the window. It was one of the most famous, popular cars in the early 70s because it was powered by a 351 Ford.
It was in the back, right?
Yeah, mid-engine.
Yeah, that's cool. So, there's not a whole lot of American powered mid-engine cars. Well, there are now. But I mean, outside of that, it's the Fiero, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that was a V6. You could swap it with a V8. The Corvair line was, but they did a boxer motor though, so it was kind of.
Corvair was rear mounted like the Volkswagen. It wasn't mid-engine.
Oh, it wasn't a mid? Okay. And then what else? I mean, now we have the C8 Corvette, and that thing speaks for itself.
Yeah, so it was ahead of its time as far as I was concerned. But my love for cars goes back earlier than that. As I was a little kid, we'd take Sunday drives with the whole family. Would drive up El Cajon Boulevard there in El Cajon, leading down into San Diego, passing all the old used car lots and the new car lots, and on one of those.
What cars would have been in those used cars? Because I mean, for us, seeing now seeing the '60s cars for us is like, dang, that's an old car. So what was when you saw that? What cars were you looking at in those dealers?
I don't really remember exactly. It was my father passed away in '69 when I was 6, so it was pre '69, so maybe '67, '68. So you'd see cars from the early '60s, the '50s, there for sale, and then the new cars. It was on one of those Sunday drives. We bought the '69 Rambler. Before that, my dad drove the bullet nose Ford. I don't know exactly what model it was, but I do remember it always having issues. We lived on top of a hill and would always have to push start him.
Okay,
hold up, pushing my dad's Ford
when he
down
says
the hill.
when he says hill, it's basically like a tiny mountain. It's so steep. Like this was El Cajon, right? This is the El Cajon. Yeah, this. Okay, so it's not like a gradual hill you go up. This thing is literally just like this, and
It was just
and they would push it down this, and Grandpa would just. You're telling me he would just like, sick? That's steep. I'm going down it every time.
He didn't need to let us push it. He just was letting us have fun as little kids. I was probably 4 or 5, chasing him down the hill, and he would stop and let us start pushing it again. So, but I just remember it was that black sedan with the bullet nose. But I don't remember a lot about it before then.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like I said, he passed away when I was 6. And 6-year-olds don't really, at least I didn't really understand death. I knew he was gone. But the one thing I do remember, which may sound odd or weird, was they came and picked us up in a big old caddy limo at the house to take us to the memorial service and the funeral. And I remember driving in that, and all my schoolmates from kindergarten were walking home. And I remember thinking, oh man, I hope they see me in this big old black caddy, because I felt so cool. You know, not the kind of thing you want to be thinking of on your funeral, but
at least it's you're taking a bad situation and making it good, right?
Yeah,
it's a good lesson there.
I just remember I was so thrilled that I got to ride in that big old stretched black caddy. So, my kindergarten teacher, she drove a '63 Corvette split window. And Matson went to kindergarten at that same school. And
yeah.
One day I ran into her. Yeah, it was even that color, that baby blue. One day I ran into her and I said, "Do you still have the Corvette?" And she goes, "You know, every boy that I taught, when I see them, ask me, 'Do you still have the Corvette?'" And they just restored it at that point. And this is going back when Matson was in kindergarten.
So she had had that car for and
probably since it was new, I would imagine. So
at that point, it would have been a 40-year-old car.
Yeah, but you know, as a little kid, I remember she'd park it down the street in front of our playground. And when we were just a kid, just looking at that 5-year-old just drooling over this cool Corvette. I didn't know the significance of the '63, the only year with the split window.
Well, it's not. I mean,
also the year I was born. So
we still drool over this car. You don't have to be a 5-year-old to be like, "Yo, that's a cool car." It's everybody that a split window in the rear is. There's been I think one other car with a concept, and that was the Chrysler Crossfire. But that's the only other car I can think of that has a legit split window.
Yeah, it was a super cool car.
Yeah, definitely.
Matson asked me to comment growing up in Southern California in the '67 and '80s. Most of my childhood was the '70s and '80s, but even as a 13-year-old kid, our town had one of the bigger cruise nights in San Diego. There was El Cajon and Escondido, not a whole lot in downtown San Diego, but some of the outskirt areas.
Was there a reason there wasn't a bunch in downtown, or?
Yeah, downtown San Diego back then just wasn't what it is today.
Mm.
It was just kind of
More, was it kind of a more run down type thing, or?
parts of it were really run down, and at 5
Okay.
o'clock when businesses closed, everybody went home to the suburbs. So
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
now it's a whole different city, but
Yeah.
at 13, around 13, 14, I obviously didn't drive, but I would ride my skateboard down to our main street, and every Wednesday, every Friday, every Saturday, and Sunday wasn't always that full, but there would always, Wednesday night, there'd probably be 50 to 100, 150 cars.
How far of a ride was that?
On my skateboard, about 3 miles.
And what, a good like 500 feet of that was straight
Straight
down a hill. Like,
down the hill, and that would get me down. I'd coast about a half a mile from the house before I'd even have to
oh
start
my
pushing.
gosh, that's crazy.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Wednesdays we'd ride the skateboard. My buddies and I would all meet up there. All lived on different parts of town, and we knew the timing, how long it'd take each kid to get there. So, okay, I'm leaving
That's-
in 10 minutes.
man.
You leave in 5 minutes, and another kid would leave like 15
What?
minutes later.
What a crazy, like, because when I started going to car meets, we all lived everywhere else, but like I was lucky enough to have you as my dad, and so I had a car I could use to be going to these meets and stuff, and it was kind of the same thing. But the fact that you were doing this at 13 on a longboard, and like all your friends, no communication, just knew what time to go, and you just showed up all at the same time. Like, that's freaking awesome, man. Like,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Our parents just thought we were riding the skateboards around the neighborhood. They had no idea we were across town. And we weren't getting into trouble, but you know, we were just there to look at the cars. It was where all the fast food joints were, so everybody parking the fast food places,
Yeah.
or we had a Thrifties where you could get those little cool ice creams.
do they have a little wooden spoon?
No, it was just like a little square ice cream.
You know what ones I'm talking about, though? The ones they have to like rip open with a little
Yeah.
wooden spoon.
No, they had an ice cream counter.
Tell you
Little
what, that
days.
is the best ice cream ever. Ben and Jerry's can suck it.
Don't say that about those guys.
That's true. They're really delicious.
Then Friday night, Saturday night, as we grew up and we got cars. Well, when I was 13, I was trying to buy a TR4 off a relative.
Oh, that's.
I had it half paid for when my mom found out about it. And
Oh, this is. Sorry, go back to the Corvette. This is the 327 small block. So,
Yeah, I had bought one of those when I was when I was 13. I'd bought one of those just because I knew someday I'd find a body to put it in. I had no idea what kind of car it was going to go in, but
I don't know, you just buy a motor. You're like, yo, this thing's sick, and I'm gonna shove it in something someday. Like, that's cool.
Well, the 327 was the cool motor, you
Yeah.
know. So
So you want to see what he decided he was gonna shove it in?
yeah, so
TR4. This thing is about the size. It's smaller than a new side by side. So like, this dude is 6 foot.
I wasn't 6 foot then.
Yeah, but you are now. And so can you imagine your tall self in this car? You're gonna look like Jeremy Clarkson. It's like wind hitting your forehead.
So I had this car half paid for. It was yellow with the wire wheels, sweet little British thing. My mom found out about it and made me get my money back. I think it was a whopping $250. I was
Wow.
gonna pay $500 for it.
I wonder how much that is now.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Interesting.
So a little while later, I found a pretty beat up Vega that already had been converted to a V8, so it came with the motor mounts and the headers and everything, but the side panel was crushed in. So
Cool car for
we
sure.
shoved a Camaro rear end under it and 10-bolt posi. It didn't fit, so
Posi's pause traction.
we were gonna flare it and kind of.
Can you explain pause traction just so they understand why that rear end was special compared to just like a normal one?
Back then, you had limited slip where the wheels would turn independent. So as you turn a corner, the inside wheel would turn less than the outside wheel. Where positive traction they would both turn at the same rate. So I remember a friend had a souped up El Camino going around this tight freeway on ramp, and his wheels, the inside wheel was just chirping like crazy because it was spinning the same rate as the outside wheel. But that was my first introduction to positive traction, and it's what you always wanted. Some guys would weld up their spider gears and make their own homemade positive traction.
That's so like interesting, especially now, because now like everyone wants limited slip. Like, that's going to a solid rear axle like that it's like such an old school move. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah, all we ever thought about was going in a straight line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you weren't thinking about the
you didn't worry about the
curves.
curves.
Yeah, which is, I think that's awesome. That's so cool.
So it took me quite a while to get the Vega put together. Low budget, working for $350 an hour. You don't get very far. So that was kind of my experience, my first car. I didn't have a transmission, so a friend had an old 2-speed Power Glide out in his field. We went, picked up, changed the fluids, shoved it in there. It just ran great.
The 2-speed Power Glide means it literally only has 2 gears. So it has first and second, and then reverse, right?
Right.
And so what that allowed you to do was rev the motor higher, essentially.
Yeah, I could just driving around town. I'd never need to shift. I'd do up to 70, 75 in first gear. Before I
Dude,
shift.
70 to 75 in first gear.
Yeah, in that little rattle bucket.
In this thing, dude.
Yeah.
That is badass.
It was nowhere near that pretty. I had a tunnel ram sticking out.
Yeah, but that's so sick.
Yeah, eventually I got tired of it. I'd upgraded it to a Muncie Rock Crusher 4-speed, which was the preferred 4-speed for the Chevy back then.
Mm-hmm.
I got tired of the Vega, so we took all the good parts, went and found a 64 Nova SS body, put everything in there.
I think I have that one. No. We'll get to that one.
So, moved up a lot as far as the car scene back then in those days, because everybody looked at the Vega and the Pinto as kind of a joke car.
Well, I mean, they were the babies. So
yeah, there was a lot of cool ones.
Maverick GT, same thing. All of them are just like, oh, it's a fake muscle car. It's not one of the big pony boys.
Right.
So
yeah, it was fun running around in the old Nova. It was slam bright red with the tunnel ramp sticking out of the hood. So
that's sick.
You know, as my life progressed, my love and passion for cars has never died. When the kids were little, I didn't have near the money to build nice things, but we were always working on something. I had an old Jaguar XJ12 that we converted with a small block Chevy.
That's sick. That's when I have the European racing lights, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically probably like a standard headlight now.
Yeah, it was one of the first. It was the first time I'd ever heard of halogen headlights. That was in '85 when I bought that.
Now, if you don't have HIDs, you look poor.
Yeah, the guy I bought it from was like, okay, these headlights are illegal over here. I imported them out of Europe, so if you ever get pulled over, just play.
Can you imagine the light bars now back in your day? Or I'm like, this man bought a son. Like,
yeah, it was pretty fun when people brided me because I just ride them back, right up the street.
did that have the bright on the dash, or was it a foot brake?
No, it was a foot
You
brake.
tap your foot?
Yeah.
Okay, so how those work, there's a tiny little button. It's in the top, like, left-hand corner of the floor panel, and it's this little metal peg, and you just tap it with your foot, and the lights just, pop, it'll come on and off, and it always makes this little metal click. We have it in our Dodge truck, and it goes, dink, 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 dink. It's so satisfying.
And sometimes if your carpet was loose, it'd slide up and cover over the button, and so one of those people would bright me, and then I'd hit them back, and then I couldn't turn them off. And it would literally light up the street like an off-road truck does.
Oh, that's so cool.
KCs. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to get revenge on those that were brighting me as I'm driving down.
Don't bright someone unless they're in. If you're in the left lane and they're not getting out and they shouldn't move, you can bright them. They're gonna get that out of the way right now. You can do that.
Well, if they're in the fast lane.
Yeah, well, technically passing lane. We can't say fast lane, even though.
Well, in Mexico, it's a fast lane. In the United States, it's the passing lane.
Exactly.
So anyway, yeah, at one point we had bought an old bug that Matson helped me on a little bit.
The yellow one, right?
Yeah, the yellow one. We made a little street bug.
Was it a 70?
The 73 that we put early 60 headlights and tail lights on, so it looked a little retro. It was cool.
The one cool thing I remember about that, the exhaust doesn't go out the rear of the car. It went out the passenger side rear tire, right?
Yeah, that's what
like
they call
through
it.
the fender. It was a hideaway. It's super cool.
They called it the hideaway. So I filled in the exhaust ports on the bottom.
The ports are the tiny little like half circles where the exhaust would come out. Or I guess on some of the bugs they did have that bottom skirt that had the hole, right?
Yeah, we filled in the holes on the skirt and dumped it out the side. And then also that year had this funky little louvered thing behind the rear window. We filled that in.
Oh, that little
smoothed
half moon shape. Yeah.
Smoothed that all in. So it was a fun little bug. Then we moved to Utah, and the street bug didn't go real well, and we had some buddies that had early versions of rock crawlers. And after going rock crawling one day, I said I need a 4x, so we got a second gen Bronco.
Oh, the big one, right?
Yeah, the big Bronco.
Yeah, that thing was cool.
We played with it for quite a few years. So,
Oh, can you imagine if we had that now? How much it would sell for?
Oh, I know.
Oh,
Broncos
dude.
have skyrocketed
That's
since
insane.
Bronco 2 came out. But anyway, so most of Matson's life growing up, there was something there. The first car that we officially called his was an old Grand Wagoneer.
Yeah.
It was before the Grand Wagoneer became a status symbol. At one point, that was the SUV of luxury.
Dude, this thing was phenomenal. It was forest green, but not like a cool forest green because it had faded, so it was gross. But it had wood panels. It had like brown shag carpet in it, and then it had these beautiful brown leather seats. But the guy I bought it from put these like sheep's fur covers on it. So this thing was just like the biggest, fuzziest tank.
Yeah, that was fun, but Matson's high school was about 20 miles from us. It got about 4 miles to the gallon back when gas was 3 to 4
It was
bucks a
so
gallon.
heavy. I learned to drive stick in that thing, not well, because that's a terrible vehicle to drive stick in. But we went out. We lived out by a place called 5 Mile, which is just like a desert off-road place, and there's a bunch of like cedar trees. I ran over one of the like half-birthed like grown trees, plowed it in the entire car. Nothing happened. It was totally fine. That tree. He looks at me and he's like, "Well, if that was an old lady, she would have died." And I'm like, "Well, it's a good thing he was a tree then."
For all you tree lovers, I'm sure it survived.
Oh, it's a cedar. It regrew itself. It's now 3 trees.
Yeah. Anyway, so even as a kid, I had relatives up in Utah. We'd come up and would cruise State Street back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Let's talk about it a little bit. I want to focus on another podcast about that, but why was State Street important back when you were in the car scene?
Well, when I was a kid, the car scenes were just, you'd find a main street and you'd go cruise, kind of similar to the Van Nuys, like Van Nuys or some of the other popular...
Van Nuys is a street.
Up in LA.
Yeah.
Anything north of Camp Pendleton to me is LA, so if you're in Southern California and you're like, Van Nuys is in LA, that's why. When you grow up in San Diego, anything north is LA or Northern California.
Yeah.
Nothing against the area, I love it, but
just generalizing.
just-
He does the same thing here in Utah too. Anything past the point of the mountain, he's like, "Yeah, it's all Salt Lake," and I'm like, "Okay, what happens when we need to go to a place that's like got 2 locations?" He's like, "Yeah, it's still in Salt Lake." You're like, bruh.
So anyway, State Street was the big cruise back in my day here in Utah. You'd go through every town, Carcraft or Hot Rod, I forget which one, would publish a cruise location throughout the nation in a lot of their magazines. So it was just pretty common to know where the other cruises were if you're traveling, so you could swing in and stop. And we didn't have internet or anything to look things up. It was all through the magazines, and they would update us on the different cool cruises, different spots, like Street Machine Nationals would come out once or twice a year, West Coast, East Coast, if I remember right. So we made it to that one year, and we're talking hundreds and
That's
hundreds
pretty
of
interesting that style of having one type of, or like one meet more like as a company in 2 locations. Because I mean, SubiFest does that now, and they have, I think, 6 or 7 that they do. I mean, there's the LA one that we've been to. I've been to twice. You went to once. Oregon, Colorado. So it's cool to see that thing has stuck around this entire time. Of like, oh, you know what? This is a really cool meet. Let's give it to more people. Make it more possible. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, there's everything from beaters to super high-end cars there. We took my friend's 67 Camaro up. We didn't have money for a hotel the first night, so we just slept in the parking lot. We got woken up by a early barracuda with a big old blown Hemi in it that just shook the ground like crazy. So nice way to wake up at 6 in the morning.
A lot better than napalm.
True. So anyway, that was life back there in the day, and it's really exciting for me because, like Mattson mentioned, Subi Fest, and we've been to other type events. Those are very similar to what I grew up with. So it seemed like there was a period of time where the car scene kind of faded and died, but now we have Cars and Coffee. We have Friday night that pop up meets here and there that they're just a lot of fun. We also are into bikes, so Friday night in the town we live in, we have Friday night bike night where you'll get maybe 50, 100, 150 bikes showing up, just having a good time like it was when I was a kid. So it's super exciting that there are people there about cars or bikes and just talking life. Wednesday night we have European night.
That's a good one. We do have a European car. It's an Audi wagon. The brakes were out on it. Not like I could have drove it, but it was like embarrassing to drive because they were like like the metal on metal. I'm like, I'm not taking this to a car meet. So I show up in the FRS, and they're all like, all right, cool. Like,
that's not a European car.
No, but everyone there is still like super chill about it because it's more like, you want it to be more prominently European, but it's cool that you could show up to any meet like that, and for like I'd say 90% of the time people are like, sick, cool, thanks for showing up. And then they're going to be asking about your car, I'm asking about the European cars. I've learned so much about Beamers in the last 3 weeks from just people there. It blows my mind how different every single one of them is. But this is stuff I wouldn't have learned if I didn't just show up,
Yeah, the other thing that brought back some memories of the early cruises, it was mainly all Detroit muscle. I remember Hondas were just starting to become popular.
That's the first one was called the Honda car, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even have like a model name. It's literally just called Honda car.
Yeah, so, and then like the Datsun trucks were the cool things. There was quite a few, maybe 10 or 15, 20 European cars to 100, 150, 200 American-made cars. So, but they still got the respect. There was a whole group of four-banger guys that would go race each other. It was a good thing we lived 20 minutes from Tijuana, so you could just go to Mexico to race whenever you wanted. Didn't have to worry about it. But it was just all American muscle. And nowadays, you roll in an old American muscle car into some of the meets, and you're one of 2 or 3 or 4 cars.
Yeah, that's insane. I was there's a meet here called Utah Weekend Car Meet. It's awesome. Thank you, Kendall, for putting that on for so long and putting up with all the crap that you have to deal with, man. Like, thank you. So that means mainly, especially here in Utah, Subarus, Hyundai Velocitors are really popular. Civics will always be there. It was pretty general stuff, but there's this guy shows up in a 70 fastback, and it's got slat bars on the bottom, and he's just like not loping, but he's got rumble, and it's I think a board 351 if I remember right or something like that. And it's these 2 kids get out of it, and their dad had bought it for him. It's a project for the 3 of them. I'm like, dude, thanks for bringing this thing out. Like, as much as I can appreciate a WRX, it's a WRX. We're in Utah. That's a commuter car. And so to see this old school built Mustang was so sick.
Yeah, so there's a lot here. We have a lot of the like the good guys put on a huge show, and then a lot of the local cities that have car shows, they're mostly the old school group that bring out their American muscle. But on the night leave, Wednesday night or Friday night, Saturday, Sunday morning, things are mostly Asian or European, which is still a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, for
Every
sure.
so often we'll run Penny out. She's a 87 Dodge D100 slammed to the ground.
That's the one that has the foot pedal light.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And with in Utah, you don't see a whole lot of slam trucks because of the snow.
Oh, dude, it's so cool seeing that the street truck scene is growing here. We've met, just in, I think this year, we've met like probably 4 or 5 guys and we haven't even had our Dodge there once. There's Slam C10s are coming in. I'm like, and now we're getting donks too. As much as like I wouldn't build a donk myself, but I can seriously respect someone that is willing to put 600 horses on 30-inch wheels and just go flying down the road. Like, I'm not brave enough for that, but that's cool, man. Like,
yeah, I don't think I'd do that either. But anyway, so that's pretty much a little bit about my history, background, love for cars, cars and my kids. It's what life's about. So
it's been so awesome being able to grow up this way, just because I know it's so unique, and because it was more the fact that you still somehow made time to pull it all off. A little tidbit about myself. Sorry, we have a laptop right here and it has like our notes and stuff, so when I'm leaning I'm just like going through them and whatnot. So like I said, I've been into the car world since ever. Like it's been cars and carpet for me since day one. And so it's definitely, I feel, more of a lifestyle for me, and I know right now it's a really big fad thing, which is cool because I'm hoping it becomes a more permanent thing, so that way we can have almost like a car rebirth for my generation. Because I mean, even up until even when I was in high school and I was saying I was working on my bug, everyone was like, great man, that's cool, like why aren't you gaming? I would say I was working on it, but really he was doing most of the work. I'd come out for like 10 minutes and be like, can I help? And then I'd do something stupid, or he'd say something, and I'd be like, you're an idiot, I'm out of here. So, but I mean, for me it was still cool. Like, it's something I'm still really proud of. I know I didn't do a whole ton of work. I learned a lot on that by watching the little bit I got to, but I think it set a really good basis for our family and how our relationships were set, because it set a very, like, I'm here for you, but you need to be here for you too. And so it was cool to take these car lessons, and that's life now. So
yeah, Matson said our family, he has 2 little sisters that grew up in the car scene. I did the same thing to my kids my dad did, would drive down the boulevard looking at the used cars.
Yep. Oh man, when we lived in San Diego, there was we'd be driving home, and every once in a while he'd take this side street. I'm little, I don't remember the street names or anything. Like, I was super young at the time, but we'd drive past this bug shop, and it was just, this guy had like 6 rows deep and like 3 high. He would stack them on like shelves, or it would be parts and stuff. And we would round the corner drive, and if I remember right, I think it was an ice cream shop. That was my tell. That I was like, okay, it's coming up. And like all of us in the car were just like wound up. We're just getting in. And all of a sudden we're just like, red, yellow, purple. And we haven't even passed it yet. So we're just saying colors. Just beating the crap out of each other.
That's when would start pounding on me about a block away from the place. I'm like, how do you know there's a purple one in there? There will be, watch.
And there was. I'm assuming there was. I'm going to say there was. No cheap shots in this house.
Yeah, so the girls love cars and trucks and motorcycles. They both have their own Harleys, so it's just part of the family. My earliest memories with Matson and cars was every year the Autorama comes around. In San Diego, we lived in El Cajon, so I thought it would be a lot of fun to take Matson on the trolley.
Oh, dude, the tracks, that was so cool.
I'm thinking he was probably like 3 at the time.
Yeah, I think I remember this, and I had that like windbreaker that like always like was, and so I was at the San Diego Convention Center, if I remember right. I remember walking in, and it's just like super bright. I remember we got there kind of late. It was dark.
Yeah, it was
when we got there.
Work one night.
And And so I just remember seeing these lights, and then all of a sudden we open the doors, these massive pillars, and it is just like white and cars everywhere in my brain. I'm like, this is heaven. I died at 3 and went to heaven. That was it. And I just remember the first car, I don't remember what car it was. It was just red. It was a coupe. It was probably a Mustang, most likely, because it was just like right there in the forefront. And I was just like, whoa, these are sick. And then we were walking around a little bit, and there's this little computer on this little podium. And I was like, whoa, what's that? And he's like, you get to go make a car. And I'm like, I gotta make a car?
I couldn't get him off the computer. It's like,
oh
come on,
my
we gotta
gosh.
go. He made
It's
like
still,
20 cars.
it's literally still my favorite thing to do. I play Forza a lot, and I was telling him, I play, the only reason I love playing Forza is so I can just make cars, like redesign them. Like it's the concept of it, just being able to turn this massive vehicle into a personality to where it's its own thing now. It's just a cool concept to me, and I love that. And like, yeah, so that's like my earliest memory too. Is like
And
is
one
getting
day
into that.
Bigfoot was in town, so we have a picture somewhere of Matson next to Bigfoot at probably like 2. So he's been around cars his whole life.
Yeah, it's. Sorry, just going through the notes again. I'm kind of.
Yeah, at that
Oh, yeah.
at that Autorama, Matson, one of the first people gave us a bag, and he
Oh.
was grabbing brochures off of every booth. He went and snuck behind the sales manager at the Rolls Royce booth and grabbed a big old fat pamphlet book they had. on
Yeah,
Rolls Royce.
dude.
I don't think they want 3-4-year-olds having that, but oh well.
You know what? It's mine now, suckers. You're not getting it back because I don't know if I have it. So sorry. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've been in cars forever. As you can tell, Hot Wheels it's gonna be a thing forever. So to my future wife, there it is. This is the beginning of it. But yeah, I just remember my old babysitter Jamie said that I would play with Hot Wheels forever. I don't remember doing this. She's like, you would just sit there for hours playing with Hot Wheels, but not even like making them run into each other and stuff. I would organize them based off like color or size, type, wheels. It was different every single time. And she's like, you were the weirdest kid, just because like everything had to be like so perfect. And but then she's like, you were basically just making a car me. And I was like, yeah, that's like my thing, so kind of makes sense. So it's and it still is. Like I love putting meats together. Hopefully our goal with this is not only to have a place where you guys feel comfortable to come to and be part of, but to be able to make like an actual meet based around this theme is a really big goal of mine, and I'm sure he's gonna be part of it no matter what. But yeah, we're really excited to do this. This is really out of our comfort zone and our box to be doing something like this, but I feel like it's really important for it to happen. Because like we said, we want you guys to be part of our father-son relationship, because for me it's at its peak. Like we've hit it. Like it's going to get better, but I think to be able to make it even not better, but just to the pinnacle of what it can be, is to bring more people in to have these types of relationships with us, because we know it's important to have these.
Also with your family, with your friends, you know, it's a big thing. A lot of people have commented over the years, you're so close with your kids, and it's because we've found common ground and we do things together as a family. Ever since they were little, we would do things. Sometimes I don't know if the girls really want them to get drugged to another car show, but
tell you what though, they can pick out models pretty good now.
Even to this day, if there's a big event going on, we've gone down to the Bike Week in Vegas as a family a couple times.
That wasn't even one of our ideas. My little sister wanted to do that. That's what she wanted for her birthday. And then there was also a tattoo convention, so it was like it just worked out. But like, that's just, we want to be able to show you that this type of stuff is totally doable. And like we're not rich by any means. We know how to take care of ourselves, but there's been times where we've pushed our bank accounts to the limit for car parts or for going to a trip based around stuff. I mean, we went down to Vegas when I had this Mini to go get these wheels. I showed up at his house and I was like, "Hey, you want to go get sushi?" And they were like, "Yeah." So we're just kind of procrastinating, and I'm just like going through wheels. He's like, "Hey, what are you looking at?" I was like, "Oh, there's this set of wheels in Vegas that fit the Mini to its max." And and they're really cheap. They come with tires and stuff like that. The tires were totally crap, but the wheels were kind of worth it. And so I show up for sushi. We don't have any. I don't have a toilet bag. I don't have extra clothes or anything. Luckily, my little sister lives down in St. George, and so we call her and we're like, "Hey, we're coming down to Vegas to pick up some wheels. Can we stay the night?" And so we just show up, and then I think they had an extra toothbrush and toothpaste. They had extra like everything, and I was like, "Sick! I'll just wear the same clothes, I guess." Go down to Vegas, buy these things, and just like there's more to that story, and we're gonna save that one. That's such a funny story, but that's just what we do now, and those trips are completely spontaneous. Like sometimes it's a real push to pull them off, but
It's so worth it.
it's worth having to eat ramen for 3 days waiting for a paycheck. Like just because, like that's a story that we have now. That's one of those things where like, dude, like what are you guys doing? We're like, we're living life, man. And so like, I don't know. I think it's a really unique way to live the car life, and yeah, I hope we can set just a good example for you guys on like just either our relationship together, our experiences through the car world. I mean, to get we've probably got like 70 years of experience in the car world between the two of us. So if you guys want advice or you need someone to talk to about stuff like that, like I help people find cars all the time. Like don't be scared to ask us questions. Like we're here for you guys.
Yep.
So we appreciate you. Again, this is the Coop and Hatch podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.